Welcome to Kettlebell Corner, where strength meets theory, where we take you on a deeper dive into all things kettlebells. I'm Jeremiah Waylon, and he's Roger Parks. And in this episode, we ask and answer 5 critical questions anyone looking to kettlebell press. Roger, what's up?
We're not answering the questions. We're just asking them.
Okay. All right. Well, you get no answers from us, but we are going to ask these questions. And these are important. Let's do it like we always do, Roger. Give them some context. Okay. Why are these important? Why do we even think we need to have people ask questions before they begin their kettlebell press?
This is what we're after with this episode. Generally, the way this works, you want to learn how to do something. You go online, YouTube, social media, wherever you happen to be, and you search for it. And then someone says, this is how you should do things. And then you proceed to do them that way. And sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. So we are looking to offer context. When you go to a coach or a qualified person who understands movement, so let's say you go to someone who knows how to press.
I do.
You say, I want to get better at pressing. What is going to unfold is a series of questions that person is going to ask internally. And we're going to make these implicit questions explicit. So rather than answers, which we can't give you, because we don't have the context, we're going to give you something better, which is questions. And that's something I have been of the opinion of for a long time, that the good questions are better than answers. So that's what we're aiming to do in this episode.
Yeah, and I think we talk like it's important to figure these things out. It's important if you're taking this practice seriously or you're training seriously or just movement and your body, figure things out. Don't just take somebody's, manual feedback and be like, that's how I do it. Let's figure this out together. We have a higher intelligence audience, Roger. Are you aware of this?
I am aware.
All the analytics have showed me that. Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's start with number 1. What are you trying to accomplish? That's a good question. Why even ask that?
Well, so let's, again, we're going to narrow this down. This framework works with several lifts. There are going to be some things specific to the press, but the overall process is going to be similar. So again, let's put this into context. The context now is this person wants to get better at pressing. That's not always the same thing. Some people may want to lift a little heavier. Some people may want to lift longer. Some people may want to just tighten up technique a little bit. So that's the first question when someone comes to me and says, hey, coach, I need some help. Okay, what are we trying to do here? I know it's silly. All of these questions really, I think, are going to seem silly, but people don't usually ask them. I was watching a video that someone sent me yesterday. It was an Instagram video, and the coach was very, very precise with what she wanted from people, and her advice was not bad. She seemed to know what she was doing, but she offered a very narrow prescription of how to do several movements, and there were some pieces missing. So for a beginner, totally fine. And she even framed it, this is for beginners. So it was a good video. It made a lot of sense, but it really got me thinking about the fact that you can't give everybody the same piece of advice. So the objective in this case is going to determine all these other steps, where as we proceed, we're going to talk about things like stance and grip, how to get the bell up, how to clean it, etc. These things are going to be influenced by the objective. So you need to understand what it is, and understand if you are looking to answer these questions, if you're looking to do a little bit of research, don't just say, if you go in, you do a search on the internet, you're not just saying how to press better. I want to do a press that is equal to 3/4 of my body weight. I want to get better at overall technique. I want to press longer. So you need to really narrowly define what it is you're looking to do, because not only are you going to be able to proceed down the path of becoming better at what it is you're doing, but you now have a KPI. You now understand what is the thing I'm trying to do, and now you can weigh what you're doing against the result. So really important question. A lot of people don't ask it.
Yeah, because if you're trying to do that 3/4 body weight press and you looked up, how do I press? And they're like, yeah, do 3 sets of 10 all the time or whatever the case may be. That's probably likely not going to get you to where you need to be.
Nope.
I don't know if it's even in the right time. All right. Well, that's good. Now, all right. What are you trying to accomplish is number one. Number two, are you physically prepared? Okay. This is a big one. You know, like, can you even put your arms overhead, Roger? Are we talking about that? Are we talking about can you handle the load? Is that basically what you're looking for in physical preparedness?
Physical preparedness, it really can touch. You can touch on this in a variety of ways. Well, let's say your upper body is prepared, but you can't get the bell into position. You can't clean it. That's part of that. So you're going to need a certain amount of strength. You're going to need a certain amount of tissue integrity. You're going to need a certain amount of mobility. So it may be that there's something that's getting in your way. It may just be a basic strength thing. It may be a basic mobility thing, but you're going to want to understand your body's preparedness for this lift. Let's say you're going into, we'll stick with this idea. You want to press heavy. Well, if you can't get your arms over your head, you're going to have problems with that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stop all pressing until you get arms over your head. Some people say you do. I don't agree with those people.
Sometimes you got to work into it, right? Sometimes
you do. And sometimes the act of doing the thing improves the thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm not of the opinion that you need to clear all restrictions right away, but at very least you should be free of pain. Sometimes you need to, you may have, let's say you want to get heavier, you may have the ability to do the lift. You just need to acquire the strength. You need to acquire the reps. That might be neurological, it might be tissue tolerant stuff, but your body is prepared to at least begin the journey to getting the press. Whereas I can't, I've got a sore wrist. I can't hold a kettlebell without pain. Like, these are things that you're going to have to clear up. So you do want to understand, is your body prepared? Now, when you get more toward the performance side, if for whatever reason you are looking to improve your press, another element to this is, do you have the muscle mass required? This is a point of contention for some people, but the people I have decided to believe, the people who have done this, the people who have demonstrable results will say you should get a certain amount of muscle mass in the bank before you really attempt to lift heavy. You should have maybe a bulking phase, and you don't always need to. Not everybody will. Results may vary, obviously, but for many people, having kind of this preparatory, let's make sure you have enough muscle mass in your body in order to do that. So that could also be part of the preparation.
Yeah. And with that comes patience, because obviously, if you're like, I need to press heavy, but you don't have the muscle mass to do it, you got to build it. And that could take, who knows, 3 months, who knows? You know what I mean? It depends what your thing is, right? It's all context dependent.
Well, and that would be covered in the first question.
What are you trying to accomplish? These are
I need to accomplish this by then.
Yeah. Okay. This is going together, Roger. This is very well thought out and cohesive. Well, one important thing I think that gets overlooked in the press, and which is why I think you put this down as a question, what stance should you use?
What we're looking for, we need to consider two things. One is your clean stance, one is your press stance. They may be different. Single bell, double bell. Many times people will clean and then narrow. You may not need to do that if you're looking to press heavy. If you're looking to press in general, ideally you want to eliminate extra steps. So if you can eliminate cleaning and then moving in, by all means. When we're looking at lines of force, the most direct lines are going to be keeping the feet underneath the hips. However, that's going to make it very difficult to move. Okay. It's going to make it difficult to balance. And you also want to remember the kettlebell isn't going to stay within this nice tight frame of your body, because the kettlebell is hanging on the back of your forearm. The globe of the bell is going to be outside of you. So rather than just having your feet directly under your hips, probably going to want to either toe out or have them slightly wider anyway, because you want to try to keep the bell within the boundaries of your body. You'll get a little more nuanced, as you get better at this, and you're going to find exactly the right stance. But what I like to think about is making bumpers, with your feet. These are the margins within which you'll move, and that's going to prepare you for the ability to lean. You may need to lean. Now, if your goal is to press without leaning, then you're probably going to want to take a narrower stance and not give yourself any opportunity. Don't create those bumpers or make the bumpers narrower. However, if you are looking to press a heavy bell and you're going to incorporate a lean, which everybody is going to do if they are attempting a maximal press. Okay. Yeah. If you think, oh, I'm pressing my max strictly, nope. Physiologically impossible. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. If you have the strength to do that, then you're not.
It's not your max.
Out.
Yeah.
No, it's not your max. So that's not a real thing. So you want to set your bumpers, you want to set your stance to allow you the ability to move, to balance, but also not so wide where you can't get the feet underneath the belt. When you look at your body like a column of support, you want to have that support underneath the thing you're trying to lift. And the kettlebell is going to be around your shoulders. So having your feet somewhere near your shoulders is usually going to be helpful, slightly outside in many cases. So you do want to think, what kind of stance are you going to have? And that's, there are other ways you can go down another rabbit hole, doing a split stance or a single legged stance or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. Just where should you put your feet for a regular 2-legged kettlebell press?
Yeah. And again, that all feeds back to question number one. What are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to accomplish like a 1.5 stance press, then the stance is determined for you in said goal, I would say. Right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And don't get it twisted. The press, even though that all happens up here in the upper body and the bell's going overhead and these sort of things, it does start from the ground up. Okay. There's a reason the algorithm has a stance first. And for more on any of these concepts, all of these are in depth and detailed in like the bell over the foot and additional press questions that we had asked in previous episodes, and I'll put those in the thing. All right, so we got our stance, we got our objective, we're physically prepared. The next question is, what kind of clean and what kind of grip will you use? A clean is a clean, a grip is a grip, or not too fast.
It's going to depend on what you're looking to do. When I press really heavy, I use, people call it a cheat clean. I call it a 2-hand clean. I don't think it's cheating. I think it's just, it's a way of getting the bell up.
Yeah. You're starting off on a bad foot talking about cheating.
by doing that, by using 2 hands, you have a bit more control. It's easier to land the bell at a particular point in a rack. And it's critical that the bell lands where it's supposed to land. Because, for those of you out there who've had the experience with pressing, the bell doesn't land well on your forearm. Maybe it's not sitting well. It's uncomfortable. It's a little too far out. It's not sitting right in your hand. You are going to run into some problems. So you want to make sure that the clean that you choose works for you. Now, I do know people who prefer a one-handed clean because the act of using the legs, tensing the body, primes the system, and it lands with a little bit more of impact. And that impact they can convert into energy that they use for the press. So it's not going to be a one size fits all. That is going to be something that you're going to need to decide. Now, as far as the grip, that's going to come down to, as long as you don't have some kind of weird specialized goal, that's going to come down to your individual structure. I do recommend, I believe you can find it somewhere in the Strong First articles, but Brett Jones wrote a good article about your hands. Yeah. So what they refer to is either neutral, ulnar, or radial deviation. And basically it's how, when you put your hands up, are your thumbs moving in toward the inside? Or your pinkies moving toward the outside? That's going to determine the best place to put the load of the bell. You want the load of the bell over the bones of the forearms rather than on the outside. You can strain your wrists a bit. You can strain your elbows a bit. So ideally, you want the center of mass of the bell over these bones rather than on the outside. So if your pinky goes way to the outside and you're putting that handle on the pinky side, you're just putting a lot of torque on that wrist and on that elbow because it already wants to move outside. So you're going to want to scoot that over and you're going to want to move it more the opposite way to line it up.
Yeah, it sounds like you can even go a lot in the grip. And just since if you are a new presser, you should know that if your clean doesn't feel right, you go and set it down and reset. If your rack position doesn't feel right, go ahead and set it down and reset. There's nothing in the world, even in the land of hard style where everything's strict this and strict that. You should make sure you're aligned. You should make sure you feel comfortable relative to what you're about to do. You don't want to fight these things. Just like Roger said, if your grip's off and you're fighting this extra torque, reset. It's where, you got the opportunity. Hell, why not?
It is an important thing. It is an important thing to realize what's comfortable for your individual rack. You also, as an aside, may not have the same rack position on both sides. So without going too far down the rabbit hole, and I have this experience as well. My right arm sits higher on my rib cage than my left arm because I've got a little bit of a twist going on. When you don't have all of the motion in a particular joint, what tends to happen is you get a rotation somewhere else. So let's say you're lacking some rotation in your shoulder, you will pick up rotation in your elbow. So let's say my right arm really wants to crank into what's called internal rotation. And I can't walk through the world with the back of my hand pointing inside of the body. So I might rotate chronically, perpetually, all the time, my elbow toward the outside. That's going to change the position of my forearm. So I might think, oh, well, both arms are the same. They might be the same, but they're in different positions. And you can experiment with the idea, you can put your hand on the back of your forearm. You can feel when you roll that forearm, you can feel the blade of the bone, how that moves. And that's going to have a pretty profound influence on how the bell actually sits on the back of your forearm. So you might find a different height. You might find that your wrists or your hands are in slightly different positions. You might find that things are rotated in or out. And this might be anatomical, but this could also be what people commonly refer to as a compensation.
Yeah, like a technique thing where you're keeping it up high, where you could actually bring it down to the body if you have the room. It could,
yeah. There could be technique in there too, and you may want to go down that rabbit hole a little bit if it's like, it doesn't feel quite right, and you notice that my left rack is different than my right rack, and I have some pain in my left shoulder if I press too much. You might want to look at what's going on with your rotations. That can be a pretty big clue. And again, I can't give you any more on that because you're not in front of me and I don't have all the context.
Yeah. But if you do have questions about your form, hey, you can find us on Instagram at The Iron Revival and go ahead and slide us a video of what you're looking at. And chances are we'll take a look at it and maybe even talk about it here on this here podcast. And what do you know? That's a free coaching session. But don't get greedy. All right. All right. Last question. What's your theoretical understanding of the lift? And we save this is the best for last. This is what everybody really wants to know. This other stuff, you're like, yeah, I get that, Roger. But what are you talking about with this? What do we mean?
Well, first of all, everyone might say they get it, but do they do it? Do they actually answer these questions and do they think about it? Because I talk to some really smart people about this stuff and I ask them these simple questions and they're not entirely sure. So let's not gloss over the first part.
Okay. Yeah. No.
You're true. The theoretical understanding of the lift, without getting overly heady, is what do you think your objective is when you pick up a bell? When you're trying to push it overhead, what do you think it is you're trying to do? What are you focusing on? Do you understand how much of your body is involved in the lift? Do you understand that foot placement matters? Do you understand that you're going to need to drive your legs into the ground and really have a bunch of really solid lateral stability, your leg all the way up to the same side arm, on the opposite side too, in order to control the bell? Do you get that? Do you understand where you should push through, the forearm and not the hand? Do you understand that you should keep the bell over your foot or over the shoulder? these are the things that I'm talking about. Do you have a good theoretical understanding of these? And I think we did an episode on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Or it's scattered in, but
yeah,
I
it's
don't
in
remember
there.
which
So
one.
listen, everybody. We got it all for you. This is the most comprehensive kettlebell podcast on the market. All right. We're not just interviewing coaches talking about the same stuff they talked about at the last podcast. We're giving you real actionable shit. I almost made it the whole episode without cussing.
Man, it's okay. So these are the things that you want to think about. Do you understand where force starts? It starts at your feet. So my recommendation is to take a few reps and put your awareness in your feet. Don't use your knees, because then it becomes a push press, but actually think about driving your feet down hard when you do your press. Does that change things?
Yeah.
Go all the way up the chain, go up from your knee to your hip, your lateral stability. Really important things. Where does the lift originate? So two important things for me and for many people I coach is, what is your understanding of what you should think about, where you should move first? The best results I get is I don't think about the hand. Okay. You can squeeze the hand, you can crush the grip. That's totally fine. But two things. One, the forearm is the thing that's going to drive the center of mass of the bell upward. If you're thinking about the hand, you're thinking about the handle, and you're going to cause a little bit of rotation, and that's not going to be an efficient bell path. So whatever your goal is, that's not going to be ideal. The second thing is, I like to really focus on driving from the shoulder blade or whatever is underneath the armpit, rather than focusing on the hand. That really tends to make a difference. This should be also, under the umbrella of, you hear a lot of things. We've talked about this a good bit too. This idea of a vertical forearm. Okay. We don't want a vertical forearm when we press, because the bell is on the outside, and that's going to create torque, and that's going to make it more difficult. So you can be near vertical, but you don't want to be vertical, because when you're vertical, you're creating a really weak, unsafe position for your shoulder. So coaches out there, keep in mind, when you tell people vertical, they're going to see vertical. They're going to think vertical. They're going to try to do it right. And you're potentially hurting them because of bad advice that's been passed down again and again. I've heard it every certification I've ever gone to, and it is wrong and it is bad.
There's obsession with vertical forearms and vertical shins. It's wild. And then when you look at it, as we've pointed out several times, when you look at these said demonstrations, it's never vertical, because this is not a comfortable way to press it. It's not a great way to press it even. It's, there's that little lean. And I guess, you could think they're not saying like this sort of horizontal press, who's doing that? That's like some old bushwhacker stuff.
No, I think the idea is to keep the arm integrated into the body and to press with the body, not with your arm. So that is good advice, but the way it's executed is often keep the forearm vertical, and it shouldn't be. So theoretical understanding really makes a difference. Where are you going to lean, and when are you going to lean? What does that actually do? So this is going to be, if your goal allows this, there's what's called the sticking point, which is usually somewhere around the eyeball. So you're starting your press usually underneath your chin, assuming your forearm length allows that. As you're going up, and as the center of mass of the bell, somewhere between the handle and the center of mass, passes your eyes, that's usually the hardest part of the press. That is also, from a physics standpoint, when the angle between the body, the angle at the shoulder, so between the rib cage and the humerus, your arm bone, when that's at 90 degrees, that is when that bell is going to be heaviest. That's when it can exert the most torque against you. Okay, that is just a physical reality. And if you have that arm up at that 90 degrees and then you lean away from it, if you do this, you should be able to feel that your tricep comes closer to your rib cage, and you're actually taking that angle and you're making it smaller. So you were literally decreasing the torque on your shoulder, and then you're able to push. And as you get what would be past that 90-degree mark, you can then shove your torso back underneath. So leaning decreases torque. It shortens the moment arm. And we've done other episodes on that if you want to get a little more in depth on that. But the moment arm is is what determines how heavy something is. When you're looking at torque, and torque is any time force has to move through a joint, right? It's how effective force is at causing rotation. So we're using torque. We're creating torque, and the bell is creating torque against us, or it wants to, and that's going to happen through the shoulder. So when you look at that recipe for torque, it is the applied force multiplied by the moment arm. So distance really matters. And as that distance increases, things are heavier. The mass of the bell stays the same, but your experience of it changes dramatically. It's going to be a lot heavier, so it's going to be a lot harder to press. So when you're leaning away, you're decreasing the moment arm, decreasing the torque, and you now have an advantage, and then you can shove back underneath with your whole body rather than just with your arm, and you can get that press up. That lean should be lateral, maybe a little bit. You can go into extension, but when you go into extension, in other words, when you lean back too much, you're going to get into some trouble. So we don't want to do that. You want to lean side to side, and that's why we create these little bumpers with our feet. We create these margins that we can lean within. And I mean, Jeremiah, you've had that experience where you were going to press. I said, "Hey, widen your feet a little bit," and all of a sudden, like, oh, that's a lot easier. You give yourself more balance, more room to lean.
I even did it 2 times right in front of you. Remember?
I do.
Yeah, 44 kilos. Suck it. And if you are like curious about how that lean sort of lines up in this bell over foot concept, we did a whole episode on it about keeping the bell over the foot. That will help correlate well with this to expand this sort of idea. So whether you're new or you need that refresher, check that episode out. That one's got the deep dive.
It does. It does. And I believe we worked with both a squat and a press. I mean, press is one of the easiest lifts to really demonstrate the technique and physics and all that stuff. So we use that quite a bit, but this is what I mean. So you should check in to understand the technique, your theoretical understanding of the lift, and start asking questions like, hey, when is this the heaviest? You know, you're telling me to spiral the bell. Why do you want me to spiral the bell? And if you ask me, I'll have a good answer.
Don't you question us.
when I asked someone the first time, I didn't get a good answer. Yeah. So I looked it up and I figured it out. But these are the things that you want to do to start thinking like a coach. You want to ask good questions and really refine your theoretical understanding of the lift, because that may be holding you back.
Yeah. Everything is figure outable if you're willing to figure it out. And that means 1, asking the questions, 2, possibly failing, 3, overcoming said thing, and then being triumphant with the bell overhead like a real champion, looking like a superhero. I think one big thing to remember out of all that was said is that the press is really a full body type of movement from the ground up. The moment, it feels like sort of like it's kind of hard to pull, like if you press from the handle, it feels like you're pulling the bell up from the bottom, which is kind of hard to do. And that instead of driving through it, if you look at any athletic performance, it's not usually happening at the very end right here. It's happening from the internal segments of your body outwards. And that goes for almost every athletic thing. I can't think of many that don't do that. Even pickleball. Okay.
There's some interesting studies I've seen that show things tend to go a bit better when you activate proximal rather than distal muscles, and proximal just means closer to the body rather than farther away. So not always. Things are gonna, there's always going to be a variance, but when you're looking at athletic movements, usually we like to see activation closer to the center, and then it spreads out toward your limbs, your arms, your legs.
Yeah, what was that phrase that always was bantied about at corporate gym that we worked at? Proximal stability leads to distal mobility. Yeah. What was that?
I think that was a Gray Cook thing. I'm not sure.
I think that's what it was. Like, is he the FMS guy?
Yeah. And I'm sometimes critical of some of the things he says, but that one makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And it's an easy one to think about, especially if you're trying to get a press up. If it's hard and you're not even engaged somewhere along this section or a little bit lower, yeah, you know what the end result's going to be. It's not going up. Trust me.
Probably not.
Not of any significant weight anyways. Again, back to question 1. What are you trying to accomplish? All
yes,
right.
sir.
Okay, so our questions that you should be asking when you're about to press. And like I said, whether you're new to pressing or you're trying to just be a better presser, you can start asking, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you physically prepared? What stance should you use? What kind of clean and grip will you use? And what's your theoretical understanding of the lift? I don't know why that's hard for me to say, but those things all put together will probably help your next press session. And of course, the biggest help to the press session is downloading the Bells app. Okay. It's free on the Apple App Store. And there are tons of press workouts in there. In fact, there's you get for, I think, less than $10, you can get 6 press oriented workouts ready to go for all difficulties. You can make them as easy or as hard as you want, ready made. And anything else on this, Roger?
No. I mean, I'd love to get some comments and some questions, but for now, this is kind of where we are, unless we have specific context. You can go into this topic for days.
Yeah, but and we just might.
But we need context. Otherwise, we're just
and rambling. For all those listeners who have left comments, do what I suggest and send us some videos of you doing some of these skills. We'll help make you better. And we won't even send you a fat bill, okay? At least not the first time. It's like drugs, okay? First one's on us. All right. If that's all, Roger, thanks for these questions. And everybody else out there, stay strong.